I'm Christie.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome back to another episode of The Psychic and the Skeptic.
Hey, psychos, how's it going?
I know, we need a little catchphrase for you all.
Parapsychos, psychos,
Parenthusiasts.
I don't know. We'll come up with something.
Let it come naturally. On this episode, we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, one you don't hear about very often. Ley lines.
You don't really hear this anymore. This is an old term if you've been in the paranormal field for a long time. But from the paranormal perspective, ley lines are believed to be these mystical pathways of energy, and they crisscross the earth at certain points. So they connect sacred sites or ancient monuments or places that are very spiritual or have some sort of supernatural power. Now, scientifically, ley lines are not recognized as a real physical phenomenon. Instead, they're seen more as a cultural or historical idea, right? Emerged somewhere in about the early 20th century.
Right. So this isn't something people noticed, and that's where my skeptical brain comes in. As soon as you mention these ley lines, they all tend to line up with all these ancient historical sites.
Yes.
Right. So how did somebody in ancient times intentionally line up these places to these quote unquote ley lines, or these lines of energy in the earth that travel all over in a pattern?
To be honest with you, again, it's more of a modern thing.
Right. It's a term that we've created in recent years to explain what we think might have been a phenomenon from ancient time.
Here we go, a little bit of parahistory. In about 1921, you've got this guy. His name is Alfred Watkins, and he was a British amateur, archaeologist. He collected a lot of antiques, and he believed that there were places like standing stones, so example, Stonehenge, right? Or burial mounds and different places that would line up in straight paths across the countryside. Now, he didn't consider them mystical type lines, but he did come up with the term ley. In English, it was spelled Ley, which meant a cleared strip of land. So he saw them kind of as practical pathways, and later on his idea was adopted by New Age writers in the mid-20th century, and they reinterpreted them as mystical or energetic lines.
So he just saw the correlation that they all tend to line up, and then all the New Age folks were like, oh, that there must be some energy that connects them all, and that's why we have this mystical connection to it.
I'm thinking so, but it's been around, and I've been doing this for 25 years, right? And I heard of ley lines
as a term,
when I first started getting into paranormal investigating and research. So
well, and in modern years, we've uncovered so many different ancient sites that you could just, if you put them all on a map, they all line up somehow, whether it's a grid line or this line or that line. Eventually everything lines up when you have so many sites. So that's one of the ways that the skeptic would explain why they line up.
Right. We know that some of our ancient civilizations, like the Mayan and the Incan, built places that were astronomically aligned with the stars.
Right.
And they use that for all sorts of things.
And they build it tall to try to get as close to the heavens as possible. And,
yes.
And looking at the stars, the theory about the pyramids in Egypt and all sorts of things that have to do with stars.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I want to get a little bit more into that in just a bit when we talk about those type of places. Basically, Watkins kind of came up with this, and there's all sorts of maps out there that have like these planetary grids and these lines going here and there, a little bit of boring stuff. But anyway,
the shortest distance between two places is a straight line. So you could
draw
lines all
butt
over.
Crack.
You could draw lines all over the planet, and it would somehow coincidentally connect two interesting things.
Right. And there, honestly, there isn't a single authoritative type world map of all these ley lines.
Well,
so
and then
to
our
speak.
maps are flat, but the Earth is round. Don't get me started there. Don't come at me.
I know where
with
this
any
is
of
going.
that. But you have, these lines line up on a map, but in the real world, you're going through all kinds of terrain and mountains and the curvature of the Earth and all those things.
So how would they line that up?
It wouldn't work out that way in natural reality.
Yeah, and I
compared
want to
to
tell
a
you.
flat map, unless the map was kind of created in a way that it equals to a straight line in reality.
Yeah, and I'll tell you on this topic, I am going to be more on the skeptical side than I am. Okay, you win.
It's just
one.
an interesting topic.
No, it is, but honestly, ley lines are pretty much a mix of historical alignments and modern New Age interpretations.
Right. It's fun to kind of see where you can find that coincidence in, a certain location for several historical sites.
Right. And so how do we connect them with the paranormal? That is the next question.
Right.
And I'm so glad that you asked, Kathy. So there's lots of different connections out there. One of them is the fairy legend, believe it or not. Kathy, do you believe in fairies?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Not the cute little ones that show up in front of
No, I
like the
can
little
explain
night,
most of those away anytime
night
somebody
cameras
comes.
with the wings.
Yes, you mean the insects that get into your infrared light?
Yes, I knew that was coming. That's why I said that. I don't know. And nothing against anybody who believes in fairies.
It's definitely a cultural thing.
It is.
I could be wrong. I've just not seen any, or they've not been proven to be in existence.
Right. I don't think anybody's ever really come up with proof of fairies, have they?
No, but there's a lot that have photos and pictures that they think is that. But again, I go back to our photo episode or our episode on spirit photography, and you'll hear the skeptical viewpoint of that. But
oh yeah, I know you hate photos, and you can debunk pretty much everyone that's out there. Well, it's the same thing like with leprechauns, right? I don't think anybody's been able to prove that they exist either.
Right, but
it's still a cultural type belief.
I'm still an open skeptic, and if somebody can come to me with different information, it doesn't mean that I'm always going to disbelieve, but this is one that's really far-fetched for me. But carry on. What do fairies have to do with ley lines?
Okay, so supposedly they do have intriguing parallels to the concept of these ley lines. So in Celtic mythology, there's frequently depicted pathways that connect fairy mounds to other mysterious locations as straight lines of energy. So otherworldly creatures use these fairy trails as routes to traverse the terrain. Some contemporary theorists have also suggested that there's ancient myths about them that has been attempted to explain these energy networks by drawing all these comparisons to the routes and the ley lines.
So they're transport
I think so.
passageways or something.
Yeah, kind of like a transport,
so that's
maybe
one
for
way to
the
look
fairies.
at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Our next one is UFOologist, right?
Okay.
I didn't even know that was kind of a
think
term, but
ufologists, yes,
Yeah.
people who study unidentified. Although we call it something else now, but anyway, most of us understand it as UFOs, right?
right. UFOologists, they have embraced the term of ley lines. They're aware of it, just like paranormal investigators, and they do believe and propose that there is some sort of connection between extraterrestrials, the activities with them, and energy channels. So some people seem to believe that UFO sightings are mainly concentrated around these areas of the ley lines. So this would make it more possible for alien spacecraft to be able to use these ley lines as like an energy source of power.
Okay, because that's where I was wondering, are they coming to specifically these ley lines because of the energy they can draw from it? Or
Yes, energy source from the earth.
Yeah,
where
that
they're
drawing
cross.
from.
Yes.
Just like our ghosts do.
Yeah, EMF, right?
Right. That's the paratheory.
That is correct. And then with paganism, there is a long history of mythological and pagan activities that actually link ley lines to witchcraft. So it gives them some sort of power. They're able to cast spells.
So I wonder if Salem, Massachusetts has a
I don't know.
intersecting ley lines.
That.
Nah, but that was disproven too, of course. But there's lots of pagan witchcraft activity that happens in that area, just kind of going off of the history. But.
Yeah, because of the Salem witch, trials and stuff. So, but I mean, who knows? These are some of the basic theories, even with the paranormal. Okay. Right. So this is another thing. Ley lines, if they cross this point of energy, they put off that extra energy. And supposedly around these areas, it's supposed to be more spiritually active. So just like you say, with the equipment, putting off the EMF, the EMF is a source of energy. Same thing for these ley lines. So whether it be fairies or whether it be ghosts or spirits or, I don't know, UFOs and aliens and whatever.
All the things.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so, a lot of people do believe that some of these areas that have the ley lines, especially like psychics and those that are really intuitive, it helps to give them a more deeper type of intuitive insight and closer, better spiritual ties. Even people report having better visions or like heightened levels of consciousness. So, for example, Sedona, Arizona, that's one of those places where they believe the energy is higher than any other place. It's just more of a spiritual place. But certain theorists believe, or they suggest, that a specialized equipment can actually measure electromagnetic properties where these specific lines actually run through those electromagnetic fields.
Okay. And there's some information I'll go into on that particular thing as we move along. I have some information for you.
Oh, I bet you do. Some of these ley lines, these places of energy, people also believe that they're places of like portals, or which is like a doorway, right? Or like vortexes. They also believe that where these portals or vortexes are along these ley lines, that it separates worlds or dimensions or these realms, so to speak, which that right there is kind of interesting to me. But again, I don't believe, honestly, we have enough scientific evidence or enough even paranormal evidence to suggest they live.
Experiences in those spots, or lots of readings or phenomenon that happens in these areas. We would have heard of it more if it was really that significant, you would think, right?
Right. Well, here's something that you may be able to measure scientifically, though. They say that where the energy flows along these ley lines, right, and where they intersect, that you will have more vegetation, like crops or plants that grow better. They grow healthier. They're more lively. And I mean, I don't know.
I would explain that one too.
Oh, can you? Okay. I was just going to say.
Least I have an explanation that might line up and make that make sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's called fertilizer.
Well, that too. But no. I mean, objectively.
Right.
We'll get into that.
Well, and then you got other believers that do believe that, these ancient societies, like what I was talking earlier about the ancient Mayans and the Incans, that they were aware of these energy lines, basically these ley lines, and that they would specifically place their monuments and religious sites at these, these powerful spots, these ley lines, because it would capture more of that, spiritual energy or that powerful type energy that's there.
Or maybe like in modern days, we saw the connection in this line formation, but it was just something that was intuitive in the ancient world. Like they felt these energies and therefore placed their monuments there. And we just happened to find that there was a connection in later centuries.
Yeah. Could very well be, and I know we were talking about UFOs and stuff just a little bit ago, but I forgot to mention this guy. In 1961, there's a former military pilot. His name was Tony Wedd, W-E-D-D. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his last name. But anyway, he rekindled the fire of these ley lines, right? And saying that they were laid out by prehistoric monument builders to provide runways for aliens spacecraft.
I think if they got enough energy to get this far, they're not going to need little tiny little blips of EMF to run off of. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, there's no evidence for this.
Poor Tony.
I do believe that UFOs exist, though. I've had some experiences myself.
Oh,
I know. We'll have to get into that into another episode. But anyway,
Gotta hear about
that. Scientific girl, go ahead and give us some viewpoint.
So just starting off, there's no credible scientific research that's found any increased energy along these lines. So they went out with equipment and using scientific method to study these supposed lines.
Do you know what type of equipment were they using? Like EMF
lots. I'll get into that. Yeah. So
Okay.
the mainstream studies have consistently failed to detect any physical phenomenon such as magnetic, electrical anomalies tied to these supposed alignments. Again, it's kind of a pseudoscience. It's coincidence. And even looking at the maps myself, they're all inconsistent. So it depends on who wants to draw what line where.
Right.
And
different map makers.
Right. And so if you've got all these hundreds of potential locations or just places where people happen to get a good little chill down their back and they think, oh, maybe this is where a ley line exists. So, right.
Good way to put it.
I mean, you put enough little markers on a map and you can draw a bunch of lines and it looks really cool and interesting. So, but anyways.
It looks scientific.
Right. So they've used magnetometers and other instruments too, but, particularly looking at the magnetic fields of the Earth, right?
Right.
So they haven't found any magnetic fields, any energy variations unique to these lines in comparison to surrounding areas. So you would think, like, as you cross a ley line, you'd see this huge spike in your meters, right? And we use these meters on investigations too.
Well, yeah, just like when we've gone to like a railroad, with the trains, and you can take the EMF meter and put it down there by the tracks, and it's going to spike off the charts.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some electrical connection too.
Yeah.
That could travel. It's not magnetic. It's metal, which is conductive of electricity. So you might see some spikes there, but occasional studies have considered geological features like fault lines to have or magnetic anomalies, but have found correlations to be weak or inconsistent and don't indicate. So there was no consistency with these lines, but fault lines were very interesting.
Yeah, the tectonic plates.
Exactly. So geological fault lines can explain reproducible electromagnetic readings. And these would be observed near locations, including those sometimes proposed as ley lines. So fault zones can generate electromagnetic signals due to processes related to rock fracturing, fluid movement, and stress accumulation, just like you were saying with these plate tectonics and where the plates connect.
Right.
So as faults form and slip, microcracks appear and grow, sometimes releasing very low frequency or VLF and low frequency LF. And these are electromagnetic emissions.
Would those cause any sort of like low humming frequency?
Yes. And that can be measured weeks or days before an earthquake too.
Right.
Yeah. They correspond to the mechanical and fracturing process occurring at a fault zone, of course. And gas movement, rock fracturing, and fault zones can create electrical changes and currents, perhaps, which in turn generate EMF fields or electromagnetic fields that can be then detectable by our instruments. However, though, experiments have generally failed to link the fault-related signals directly with the ley lines, so they don't match up with these fault lines and these ley lines.
Can't connect them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they can't connect it as mystical or unique energy patterns rather than any detected EMF anomalies likely having a geological fault or tectonic origin, but just not a mystical one.
Right. So they can explain why the Earth does what it does and the things, but they can't say that it is any sort of mystic relation.
And again, if you look at
paranormal.
maps, every map's going to be a little bit different when they're looking at the ley line. So I was curious about locally in Oklahoma. We have some seismic activity that happens here, but a little more superficial and having to do with oil and fracking, perhaps. But
right.
That's also a debatable topic too. Well, I mean, there are fault lines in America. Just there is one near. It may or may not have to do with that, but our ley lines, according to certain maps, don't match up with fault lines that would be nearby.
Right. And years and years ago, we never used to have earthquakes in Oklahoma. That was
and that was something else that would potentially.
Right. Not trying to get into that. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Made me think of it.
So which scientific experiments have attempted to detect ley line energies? There was this well-known scientific effort to detect these ley lines through the Dragon Project. This was launched in the UK in 1977.
I've heard about that one.
So the Dragon Project was led by Paul Devereaux and a multidisciplinary team that used various scientific instruments at ancient sites, especially the rollright stones in England. So researchers measured for anomalous ionizing radiation, magnetism, infrared emissions even, and ultrasound. So they were attempting to find any physical marker of Earth energies claimed by ley line believers.
They did that at Stonehenge too.
Right. Yep. And the project also involved dowsers. So these are those who used rods, dowsing rods, to try to locate energies alleged to be associated with ley lines. So some of the control that they wanted to do was they made sure that these dowsers had no idea where the ley lines were to see if there was any correlation to what the supposed line was and to when they were capturing any kind of anomaly.
So that makes me think of a question then, because we know that like dowsing rods are used in paranormal investigations. So if someone uses dowsing rods and they're getting them to cross thinking that's a yes or that's a no, really it's not, right? It's what, something within the earth causing them? Because I know they work for water, right?
Well, that's what they say. I am lucky enough to know a family member who is from the late 1800s. He was born in the 1890s. And when I was a little girl, he said he found the well on his property by using a dowsing rod. It showed that the rods crossed and they dug a well, and that well was still in use when I was a kid living at the same home.
Wow.
And he told me the story about it. So, he's of a generation that highly believes in dowsing rods and finding unique things,
right?
Like wells and stuff. So I don't know if there's really anything to that scientifically. But
how do they work though? What causes them to move? Is it something
some
within
kind of energy is what's supposedly said.
But what type?
They use modern equipment to detect these energy fields as well as these dowsing rods, just to cover all the bases, right? So it was randomized. They used some physical shielding for some of the equipment to prevent the sensors being exposed to any kind of interference. They used pre-testing, the artifact checking. Before starting the test, dowsers were asked to walk the test area and report any places where they felt ambiguous stimuli or false signals. And those spots were then excluded from the randomized test just to avoid these results and to control for instrument noise. So even the dowsing rods, they looked for interference there. But
how do they know that it's not just a person who's using the dowsing rods?
Right. Well, that's the other thing. It probably was quite random when they went through, but they used double blind testing, so they ensured that neither the dowser nor the observer knew the location, as I mentioned earlier, of the supposed target, like buried pipe or energized circuits, or any unintentional cues or bias from influencing results.
See, I still have a problem with that. And the reason is you could just move the dowsing rod a little bit, or like not have it where it's even,
right?
And it's going to move.
Cross. So if you're walking around, yes, it's very, very difficult.
How can they use that as any sort of scientific measuring?
Yes. Well, and there's lots of paranormal investigators that use dowsing rods and swear by them. But, for me to even be open to them, I would need somebody to be quite still. It always requires somebody to hold the rods, too. You can't just set up dowsing rods and not have human interference with them.
Why not?
I don't know.
And that's what I was getting at earlier, is what causes them to move. The same with that, we're talking about dowsing rods, same with pendulums. When you go to use a pendulum, what causes that to move? Is it the energy through a human that's being put off, like with a dowsing rod,
all
or
that
what?
they found with this was that all the results, there was really, it all came down to chance. So there was no consistency with the results on any of their equipment.
Not scientific enough.
And then I would say, with our equipment and how we use them, our EMF readings, we might have locations that have like 0.0 milligauss when you're talking about electromagnetic field.
Right.
Yet we still get some kind of paranormal activity. So whether that is, according to a paranormal theory, spirits draw from the energy fields around them, but yet you still get activity when there's no energy field. So if paranormal activity is a thing, there's got to be more than one way to draw energy.
Right.
So your equipment, or clearly it didn't come from the environment in those cases.
Yeah.
Right?
That
is come from
interesting, what you're saying.
So all of this kind of overlaps with paranormal theory. So that's why it's an interesting topic, but...
Right.
Again, we're both kind of on the ley lines.
Right. How do you prove it? Yeah.
Right. So is there really just more something we've got lots of high energy places all over the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So what were some of these locations And maybe there's something just specific to the site itself that makes it a hot spot for activity.
Well, and there's sites, one that is supposedly the paranormal is experienced because of the power coming from the ley line. But then you've also got some spots that are astronomically connected to some of these sites just because of the ley line and the power. But it's more astronomical than it is like
So a connection
paranormal.
to space.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty
so
much.
the aliens again. No, just kidding.
Quite possibly. I can tell you are not an alien believer either, huh?
I don't know. I want to believe. If you're a fan of an old 90s TV show, you know where that comes from.
Right. I'm going to be honest. Until I actually had a couple of experiences myself, I didn't really believe in UFOs, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a believer now. Like I believe, and it's hard to fathom, not to get off on the little trail here, but it's hard to believe that we're the only ones out there in the universe.
And that's another movie from the 80s too.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't thinking of a movie.
It'd be a waste of space, wouldn't it?
Right. Okay, so one of these places is Stonehenge,
right,
over in the UK. Speaking of UK, hello to all of our UK listeners. Yes. So supposedly Stonehenge sits on, this ley line intersection. And visitors have actually reported, and again, this is the paranormal side, right? So visitors have actually reported experiencing time slips, sudden temperature drops, and sightings of glowing orbs in their photographs. Now, orbs, that's one of those.
And it's outside too.
Right.
And it's the UK where there's lots of moisture. But the time slips is really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that in probably a future episode. That's something that's hard to explain, but
right. Well, they believe that
Stonehenge is still a mystery too, even though there's lots of theory out there now what the purpose behind it was. But there's lots of connection with the sun setting and the different times of the year.
Yeah. Well, and it's also thought to be astronomical. So,
right.
And one thing that I don't know if a lot of people know about Stonehenge, but Stonehenge was actually used as a religious site, right? But they also buried people there.
Right, yeah.
When they've done excavations at the site, they've actually found a lot of bodies.
And there was another site nearby, too, very similar, like a mini Stonehenge that they found,
yes,
too.
Yes. But anyway, they think that Stonehenge kind of acts as like this power grid. And it amplifies spiritual and psychic energy.
So whether it's on a ley line or intersecting ley lines, it's still a really cool place and has a lot of historical energy.
Oh, yeah.
If any energy at all.
Yes.
Right? Yes. It's really cool.
Then you got this other place, if I can pronounce this correctly. It's also in the UK. Glastonbury. Yeah. Tor and the St. Michael's Line. So supposedly the St. Michael's Line is said to run diagonally across southern England. People do report seeing ghostly monks, strange lights, and even fairy-like beings.
The land of the fairies.
Yes.
Or was that Ireland? But same, UK.
Right. Yeah. UK for sure. Okay, then we're going to go back to the U.S., right? We have Sedona, Arizona. So, like I mentioned earlier, more of a vortex energy. It's very famous for this. People that visit Sedona claim to have overwhelming sensations, tingling skin, dizziness, spiritual type visions, and also a heightened psychic awareness.
So that's very similar to the symptoms you would get from high EMF too.
Yes.
So do you know if they've done any readings to see what kind of natural EMF we have in that area?
I didn't research that part, but I would think that they would have because of just it being known for this high energy,
Yeah, I wonder what the readings are. Let's go to Sedona.
Yeah, right, exactly. But hey, UFOs are also connected with Sedona.
Right.
So there's supposedly a lot of UFO sightings that's reported in the area, and they're often linked to said energetic portals.
Maybe aliens are paranormal investigators.
And they come over here to the U.S. from whatever world that they're from.
They're just
to
a step ahead of
investigate.
us, and they know where to go looking for high EMF.
Maybe. And all their, what is that, upgraded technology that they have?
Yes, they come in peace.
Right. Not like the movies where they have it where they're taking over and it's some horrid creature beast. Yeah. Bermuda Triangle.
Yes.
Which I've always found the Bermuda Triangle to be very interesting because, you hear of so many ships and different things, like disappearing within the Bermuda Triangle.
And they've studied this and looked at it, though I don't think there were any magnetic changes, were they? It was malfunctioning of aviation equipment or
correct
or navigation equipment for ships
and problems. Yes, but ships and planes mysteriously disappear. And they say that it's like energy fluctuations. I've even heard of the time slips with the Bermuda Triangle. Mm-hmm. They go in and like it's present day.
People definitely experience something, whether it was weather, whether it was some kind of magnetic change. There's something strange going on there.
Oh, for sure.
And
I'm
maybe
a full
it's something
believer in
different
that.
every time, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, even in the clouds, pilots that fly above, not just the ships on the water, but pilots that fly in the clouds above have often experienced time slips as well. And just like all their equipment goes crazy, like in the ships and the planes. So there's definitely something to the Bermuda Triangle. What it is exactly, I don't know. Okay, Machu Picchu. And it's in the
Always
Andes.
Fun to say.
Oh, I know, right? Where they come up with some of those words.
Yes.
But it is said to sit on a ley line. Travelers and shamans that go to the area describe the mountain as a portal to another dimension. There's out-of-body experiences said to happen there. Apparitions are seen of Incan priests, strange humming sounds. Okay.
So there's the ELF.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was asking you about humming sounds earlier.
BLF, LF, and ELF. Extreme low. Yes.
Okay. Well, we know that geologists are aware that the ancient Incan people actually built Machu Picchu on fault lines. Now, this is what I thought was interesting.
The mountains were made from these fault lines.
Oh, exactly. In my former career, when I was a teacher, I taught about Machu Picchu. That was one of the places I taught Central and South America. And they said basically that these buildings that the Incan people actually built, all their homes, all their buildings, they used a type of, it's called ashlar masonry, if I pronounce that correctly. But they were able to cut the stones of these places so precise that they would actually be able to fit together without mortar. And this was because when an earthquake happened, these buildings are not falling apart. They actually stay together because of how precise.
How solid they were. Yeah.
Yes. And they said that they built Machu Picchu in this place. Yes, on purpose because of that.
Oh.
Isn't that neat? Like they had that wisdom and knowledge to know how to do it. So it's considered seismic resistance. I thought that was pretty neat with Machu Picchu and the Andes of Peru. So then you have Mount Shasta, California. We're back in the USA again. It's considered to be a major earth chakra. Now, if you know anything about the chakras,
center of your energy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And all your chakras are supposed to line up for a good balance, spiritual energy balance, of course. But paranormal stories here include ghostly Native American spirits, UFO sightings, and even claims of an underground city inhabited by the lost race of Lemurians. Yeah, if I can pronounce that correctly. And then most people just report feeling an intense shift in energy when they go hiking up. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the lack of oxygen at the elevation.
Maybe. The higher you get, the lack of oxygen to the brain. So you're starting to hallucinate or see different things or whatever. Okay, the Nazca Lines in Peru. And there's a ton of them. Have you heard of them?
Yes, I have heard of them.
Yeah, they're quite popular, actually. Created by, the Nazca culture, they think, of Peru between anywhere 200 BCE and 500 BCE. And what's neat about these is it covers an area of about 386.1 square miles. And there's about 300 different types of figures, like animals and plants and just different ones, right? And some of these massive glyphs actually align with some of these so-called claimed ley lines. So, but there's other theories out there. People believe that they were markers for extraterrestrials. So like they could, alien spaceships could see these lines from up in the sky and know where to land, or I don't know.
So there's
like an airport
lines and stuff, like crop circles, but not circles, right?
Yes. But anyway, paranormal people, like visitors, they've said that there's glowing lights over these desert areas where the Nazca lines are, and then sensations of being watched. Would that make sense with EMF? Higher levels of EMF?
If it happens to be an area where there's high EMF,
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting on some of these places. Now, when you're looking at astronomical alignments, this is going to be a little different for some places. So, example, Great Pyramid of Giza. These Great Pyramids were built around 2560 BCE during Egypt's 4th dynasty. And the pyramid sides, they actually align almost exactly with the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. So, scholars have said that these Egyptian architects relied on observation of the stars to know how to line them up. This is also something that I taught before. So it's basically a famous temple. The temple, it's known as El Castillo. And what's neat about this and what makes it astronomically aligned is that on the spring and the fall equinoxes, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was those two. But what's happened is the way that they've got this lined up, they believed in the serpent god. And it's Kulakan, I can't pronounce it, but that was the name of their serpent god. So if you can see at the bottom of the temple, they have what appears to be like the snake heads.
Okay. Oh,
and so twice a year with the equinox, what would happen is the way that the sun reflected on it, it would look like a snake coming down the pyramid.
So
I have a video of that somewhere. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's the shadow, but
very
it does
similar
look
to
like
Stonehenge and the equinoxes, or the times in the year when the sun and things line up just right.
Yes. And in fact, if you study a lot of Chichen Itza, there's a lot of things that they actually rely on for, like the sun, their observatories, it's fascinating culture.
Right.
So anyway, there's that one. And then the other one is New Grange. Okay. And that's over in the UK, basically. It was kind of like a tomb. And they had like solar cycles. And so what's unique about this is
it's like a terrestrial home. It looks like it's kind of made into the earth, perhaps.
Yeah, it's kind of round, almost like what an underground home would be.
Yeah.
But what's neat is like a certain time of the year, the way that the sun would like hit the front of it and bring light into it. It's the way that it kind of lit up. Yeah. So it's supposed to be one of the other more astronomically aligned places.
Right. And so
that maybe
some of these places that have alignments with the sun or the stars also happen to fall on a ley line.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So there's supposed to be places that are of more significance,
right.
More spiritual connection. Yeah, for sure. Now, do we have proof that exists?
Well,
no, but it's a
all
belief.
That to say that, that's a long list of places, and there's so much more out there. So the more we discover, the more points on a line that you can create.
Right, which would be somebody else's created map, right?
Which is what I'm saying, that it's coincidental that they all line up in these lines. And
right.
But, there can be like a bigger metaphor going on here. Everything connects somehow. If we all line up, and perhaps we're all sharing this energy that's all around us. We know it exists scientifically, and energy is used for all kinds of things. So,
well, we are energy too,
right? And that's one of the things that we study as paranormal investigators. Is the paranormal part of this? Is paranormal? Is it energy that we're detecting and that we're looking for? Is consciousness energy, and we're seeking out what's left after somebody's left their physical body. Right. So energy sources are everywhere. And so they're going to be on a ley line, or they're going to be off a ley line.
You say that so convincingly. No, I mean, exactly. I totally agree with you here. And like I said earlier, I'm leaning more toward the skeptical view on this than I am more of like the metaphysical. So
especially since they've detected that there is no pattern in these energy fields, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but it does make sense that in these places with these fault lines that we have more energy release in these fault lines, and because we can prove that, and we can recreate that, and we can measure that.
Yes.
So what would be interesting is to go do an investigation over a fault line.
Right.
See what we get.
The question is, which map do you use to get there? Because there's so many. But, I mean, I think the astrological viewpoints make more sense to me than just like the paranormal ones, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we know that ancient cultures relied on the stars.
And humans have always been fascinated about what's around them and what's above them. And
absolutely.
And it makes us feel so small, as it should be. Because we are just a little speck in the whole cosmos. And, who knows what's out there. Hence your UFO connection there.
That's what I was fixing to say.
Right.
So that's, I mean, we can't be the only thing out there.
Yeah.
The universe is huge. There's so much of it that we haven't even got to discover.
Right. And the paranormal is the normal, just not yet understood, right? That's what we say all the time.
Right.
So
who knows?
Yeah, and this topic was fun to talk about.
It was.
Another fun episode. So it's a little bit out there for us normally, but that's kind of what we want to do with this podcast is share these topics, these paranormal things, and just kind of expand. What do you think? Is there a psychic connection? What does science say about it? And what do you think about it? So if you're interested and you liked this topic, or you want to hear more on other topics of a similar nature, go ahead and send us an email to psychicandskeptic, all spelled out without the word the. So psychicandskeptic@gmail.com, or you can go to our Instagram and see what pictures we posted. Maybe we can put up a random map of a ley line, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here.
Someone's version.
And you can find us at Psychic and Skeptic on Instagram, as well as our Facebook page. We have a Psychic and Skeptic Facebook page where we can post there as well. So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.